Mm. Is it clearer now? Yes.
Yeah, much better, much brighter.
I'm also going to mute myself. This looks great, everyone. I'm so excited.
So can you see when people sign on to when the participants sign on?
We should all be able to see that in attendees.
Okay.
We haven't opened the room just yet.
Got it.
I want to make sure we're all ready. I think we can go ahead and open the room.
Just getting them, plugging in the thing.
Yeah, we can choose to engage with people if we'd like as well.
Julia, will you check on Facebook?
It's live streaming on Facebook.
Perfect. I'm trying
Started 20 seconds ago.
broadcast.
Excellent.
We're broadcasting.
And it's in speaker view, so the corner is the person whose mic is the strongest here. Right now it's Akole.
Do we see people coming in yet or not? Because I don't have control of my screen.
Yeah, people are joining. It just has 2 eyes on it now. I'm one of them.
Ooh, 18 people. 19. I'm gonna mute. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Hunger for Justice series. It's a weekly live broadcast on how to feed everyone in a post-COVID world. We are so grateful that all of you can attend. We cannot be more excited for the series coming up, the additional episodes, today's episode, and to embark on this journey together. What I'd like to acknowledge at first is a few ground rules. First, please use the question and answer box to submit questions. We will be sharing those questions at the end of the session, and we'll give every one of you an opportunity to be part of the process. The best questions, decided by a panel of AGC staff, will be awarded gift boxes from our generous donor, Navita's Organics. Second of all, please use the chat, share information with each other, engage. This is for us to grow as a movement together, to share insights, to join, and hopefully make the kind of change that we're looking for in this world today. Please be respectful of what you share, and please be respectful of the process. Now, what we're trying to do is to bring these voices from around the world, the amazing voices that we feel need to be amplified, recognized, and valued. Too often, Indigenous, smallholder, and peasant communities are left out of the dialogue when we're talking about how to change a food system for everyone. This Hunger for Justice series is an attempt to stop that and to move together in a way that is not only sustainable, but mutually regenerative and inclusive. Now, thank you so much for sharing this time with us. We hope that each of us can embark on this journey together. And before we start, I want to provide a quote from a dear Cesar Chavez. Yesterday was the anniversary of the death of Cesar Chavez. And there's a wonderful story that sets the stage. A journalist was sent to follow Cesar. This journalist followed around Cesar for a few days from rally to rally and was just blown away at the unbelievable respect and admiration that farm workers gave him. On the third day, the journalist asked Cesar, "How do you explain that adherent respect this community has for you?" He smiled and chuckled and looked and said, "The feeling is mutual." The Hunger for Justice series is a dedication to that mutual feeling. Together, we can shape a better food system. Now, I am so excited to start this journey by introducing a wonderful board member of AGC, an amazing activist and ally, as well as a dear friend, Jen Scott.
Thank you so much, Lauren, for the introduction. I'm really honored to be moderating the first in the sequence of amazing talks we've got planned for the Hunger for Justice series. As Lauren mentioned, I'm a proud board member of Agroecology, and I've also spent the last 15 years or so working on issues of gender equality in international development, particularly with women and girls in rural communities. I'm actually also myself a woman from a rural community. I grew up in a small fishing and farming town in Scotland. And after the years after college, I was very lucky in that one of my earliest experiences was the opportunity to work and live in a remote indigenous area in the state of Odisha in India. Where a grassroots organization of local tribes, NGOs, and activists were fighting to protect the rights of tribal communities to remain living sustainably on their land as they had done for thousands of years in the face of an illegal land grab by an international mining company. And that experience left me very frustrated with the asymmetry of power between people, especially women, in local communities on the one hand, and then the investors, the businessmen, the politicians, and the economists on the other, who tended to call the shots. And I would talk to people about this, and often they'd be very well intentioned, but they would sort of say to me sympathetically, oh, that's great that you're trying to help, but you don't really have any credibility. You're young, you're inexperienced, and unless you have a background in economics, you won't fully understand how the system works. So I thought, okay, challenge accepted. And I took it upon myself to get right into the belly of the beast. So I went to grad school to study economics and public policy. And then I traveled all over Africa and Asia, employed by multilateral organizations like the World Bank and the UN as a policy advisor on gender equality and sustainable development. And I think in retrospect, I started out this journey, as many of us do when we're young, just looking for answers. So when I asked myself, what is development really about? How should it work? I wanted an answer that was definitively correct, something that was technically effective and something that was morally right. It was very easy to see that the experts who live in Geneva or Washington or New York, or even for that matter in Delhi or Bangkok or Nairobi, weren't always best placed to decide what development meant for the rural women and their families that I was speaking to in my travels. But then it was also true that the contributions of these women were not always recognized or respected, even within their own communities in the global south. And so it took me a long time to understand that maybe the reason I wasn't finding good answers was that I was asking the wrong questions, and that I needed to change my thinking completely. So this journey for me has kind of ended up with a strange circular quality, taking me almost back to where I came from, my roots in the village. And my point is not that rural communities have all the answers, and they certainly don't, and romanticizing that lifestyle glosses over the very real hardships that people face. But instead, the goal of today's webinar is to start to try to invite a dialogue where, instead of anyone claiming to have monopoly on answers, we together lean into the questions and listen deeply to the experience of our panelists, asking what we can learn from their work and also what it can teach us about our own societies. So before we get started, I want to have a quick background on the two amazing women we're going to hear from today. So when we talk about innovation, we often think of Silicon Valley, high growth startups and venture capital. But the original root of the word innovation, I looked it up yesterday, it's quite interesting. It comes from the Latin innovatio, which means literally to renew or to restore. And really, when we think about there's something very radical about that you take a material matter, something like soil, for example, and you find a way to keep breathing new life into it so it can continually be useful and continually be renewed. And when we talk about farmers, in particular female farmers, this is exactly the kind of innovation they're pioneering with agroecology. And Seno and Akole are two of those innovators. They're our panelists today, and they run something called the Northeast Network of Nagaland Chapter, which is an incredible women's rights organization that promotes sustainable agriculture and agrodiversity in Nagaland, which is where they live, their home state in Northeast India. Seno and Akole are both Indigenous women who decided to return home to their village after being the first women in their families ever to graduate from college. And ever since then, they've really been at the forefront of documenting the status of women in their home state, championing women's rights, encouraging and supporting local communities, and restoring and protecting food systems and agricultural practices. So I would like to now turn it over to Seno and Akole to talk more about their work, and they're going to give us a presentation. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for giving this opportunity to be part of this webinar series. I am Seno from Northeast Network Nagaland, and my colleague Akole, she is also with me. We are from Northeast India. Northeastern part of India consists of 8 states. It is one of the biodiverse hotspots of the world, and it is also a very rich cultural diversity, having more than 200 ethnic groups in the region. We are also known for our resilience, and also like the region has gone through conflict for many, many decades, and the people have been, like surviving all those struggles, all those problems till today. And because of the conflict, also like a lot of problems, uh, be it displacement, which is of course like even development induced and also conflict induced. And we are also, uh, being located in a very strategic location which shares international boundaries. And so, like it is also one of the most marginalized, militarized region of the world. Um, Coming to the topic, today's topic, gender equality and agroecology. I would like to share about what agroecology means to us. For us, agroecology is to work with nature. It's also to work with nature for the people and the knowledge systems that is attached to the land, to the resources, to the rivers, to the forest. It is also, to us, it is also to do with, the health of the people, the health of the soil, the health of the water bodies, the health of our forests. Also means like what we grow, what we want to have. It is also to do with autonomy of the land and the resources uh, around the communities. And also for us, agroecology is something that we cannot forget is biodiversity, be it diversity of livelihoods, be it the types of crops we grow or the kinds of trees and plants that grows in our land. It is also to do with the larger picture of, like the community well-being. So agroecology is a system that is a way of life to our people. It is also something that has been sustaining us for centuries till this generation. So agroecology is something that is is a system that interacts with the natural environment around us. Uh, yeah, so in short, it is a system where we work in harmony with nature to sustain our communities, to sustain our resources, natural resources around us.
Yeah, so let me also add to what Seno has already shared. Our understanding of agroecology, uh, in this, like women, particularly the rural women farmers play a very significant role in this agroecological systems, because in our community where I've grown up, from a village, I've seen a lot of my the women in my community, including my mother, who has been, who is at the center of agroecological systems. And because like starting from her work within the home, a lot of the care work, like especially the unpaid care work, caring for the family, for the children, even for the extended family, and even of the community, women play a very significant role. Not just that, but even in the farms, she goes, and then we have these diverse farming systems. It's not just one form, but it has diverse farming systems. We have the shifting agriculture, which is also called the Joom system, and we also have the terrace rice cultivation system. We also depend a lot on this thing, our kitchen gardens, our home gardens. We also depend a lot of our food also are collected from the forest and all. And in all this, women play a very significant role, from foraging to collection of food, from the selection of the seeds to preparation of the land to yeah, weeding to sowing, from harvesting, post harvest storage, and then food processing. And also in all this, women play a very significant kind of role. And though we all know that women in my community, though they contribute a lot of the work, they do most of the work in the fields, they have a very vast knowledge about the seeds, about the different benefits and of multiple benefits of wild edibles, plants, herbal medicines, and all of that. But the reality is, women do work in their family farms. They do have access to the lands through their, fathers or through the husbands and all. But we do not really have control over our productive resources, which includes the land. So that is one reality there. And the second thing is that women are, again, though very knowledgeable, but they are not really part of the decision making processes. And that is a reality which is also there in my community. And otherwise, like in terms of work, the work burden is really quite heavy on women. And that is how the reality is there. But in terms of the contribution that women makes in this agroecological system, it is something which is really needs to be recognized. And in this, I just wanted to want to share one case study, uh, like a story of a woman in my community. So here is a woman, like her name, yeah. So this is one of the women farmer, Adile Weza. She is 58-year-old women farmer from my village, Chizami village in Nagaland. So I've had the opportunity to know her, interact with her, been to her farm as well, and also understood her, how she is, playing a very big role in promoting this kind of agricultural system. So she also adopts like diverse farming methods. She has been working in our family farms in the shifting agriculture in the Jum, and also has terrace fields, and also very much having her home garden where she have a lot of, she believes in diversity. So she has been saving seeds, like about 70 seed varieties, like both of crops and fruits and all. And she has been sustaining this, saving her seeds, and also sharing her seeds with women in her community and also beyond. And what is interesting is she has been innovating also over the years, like um, with climate change, to make sure that she's able to protect herself from this climate risk and all. She is very much working with the diverse food, crops and all. And beyond her family farm also, what is interesting is that uh, she also has this, her larger friend circle and groups, which she called a self-help group, SSG. So she also is part of that group, though she produced enough for her family, but she still feels that it's a very important part to be part of the larger family, larger community. So she works with her friends also, and then does some collective farming as well. And then also this woman is somebody who has a very vast knowledge on seeds, on pest management, on soil management, on soil health. And then she understands the different biological systems within our farms. And also she has been the knowledge holder, and she has been really sharing her knowledge and experience with other farmers in our community, but not just that, but also beyond our community. So we have this, they've got a learning circle, agroecology learning circle, where she is playing a very significant role. And she has also been sharing her experience and transferring her knowledge to the younger generation in the community. And beyond that, like she's also part of the larger women collectives, women groups. It's a all women space. It's called the Women Society in her village. So she's playing a very active role there also, and then trying to making an leading, you know, women to organize themselves better, and also to kind of take actions like in our community. She, along with the women in our community, came together and then they started a community seed bank in her village. And this seed bank is today able to kind of make traditional seeds accessible and available for the farmers in her community. And they were also able to revive some of the seeds, traditional seeds that were already lost. And especially like there are some seeds like the millet, different varieties, which she is now really promoting it. And then beyond that, they were also able to initiate a farmers market led by women in her in a small, you know, place, Chizami, in the market area. So every week there is a farmers market where all the women, not just from this village but neighboring villages, also come and participate, and they're able to really bring forward like different like local food from the forest, from the farms, from the gardens. All these things are made available, you know, and accessible for the other consumers who are also not farming anymore. So in this way, she, along with her women's group, they're able to you know, kind of strengthen this kind of commons also in her, the seeds, and then also the local produce, making it available for communities. So these, there are several of them like her, like Adile, who has really taken the leadership role in kind of building a resilient, you know, future in a community. So that's one of, you know, the story that I would like to share with all of you. And I will now give the time to Seno to just share some of the concerns we're facing at the moment.
We have people like Adile, who is keeping the culture alive, our culture of agroecology alive, the culture of sharing, the culture of restoring nature. But there are also concerns. It's not all rosy and glossy this side. The emergent concerns which I want to share is the overriding of cash economy over subsistence economy. There is a preference now for more of cash crops, and where there is cash crop, there is competition, and so the solidarity-based economic activities are losing out. Another concern and another major concern is the shrinking of commons, that there is change in the land use patterns, that the community farming, the collective farming is losing its place and more to individual or privatized way of land use. There is also elite land grab, that the rich and the elite class of the communities are uh, controlling more and more common land. There is also, which is, this system is limiting women's access to resources, be it, like the farmland or the homestead or the jum fields where she grows for her family and for the community. There is also a trend of, men moving out to other work, whether it is to do with construction work, whether it is to do with other service work like driving, military or service, government jobs or private. Men are moving out, and the agriculture or the farming or the agroecology work is in the hands of women, which is also increasing the work burden of women. And this is a great concern, especially the young people alienating themselves to agroecology, that are moving out their desire for something which is not really related to our own land or our own ecosystem, but moving outside our ecosystems. And the other concern is because the women's work, when agroecology is managed, nurtured, and kept alive by women, this is not really recognized. So women may have access, women may be doing the key role of keeping this agroecology uh, culture alive. But when it comes to leadership, when it comes to decision making, when it comes to taking important decision over the land, over the farming practices, over access to the natural resources around, the women doesn't really have a leadership space, and thus that is also another like big challenge. And when it comes to like climate crisis, which is faced all over the world, this is something that is a big concern to all of us here. So these are some of the emergent challenges that I want to share with you, and also some of the initiatives that Northeast Network is taking, trying to bring some kind of change, and like through different kinds of activities, through different kinds of programs, to see that women or the communities reclaim their lost spaces, or the communities revive the dying culture, the the agroecological practices which has been practiced over centuries and which has been passed to this generation, but this generation is losing out. So here are some of the activities that the initiatives that Northeast Network takes I would like to show. We do strengthen and promote ecological agriculture and local livelihoods. We believe in the livelihood opportunities that is within our local ecosystem. And we see that the livelihood opportunities are strengthened in such a way that the economy, the local economy grows, and the vibrant community uh, life comes out, or life stays. So that is one area that we are giving a lot of emphasis. And we also feel that until unless we collectivize these women farmers, or we collectivize the youth, I feel that individuals will not be able to do. So we strongly believe that collective actions brings about change in the society. So one of our focus is, how do we strengthen these women collectives? How do we see that their leadership is built up, that they can stand on their own feet and they can articulate what they need, and they can claim the spaces which is denied for a long time. The other thing that we try to do is that like the farmers market, creating market access to market is something, trying to build local markets so that we have a very strong local market within our own communities, and that the food really don't need to travel from long distances, or we don't really need to send to long distances. So that it's like farmers market is something that uh, uh, we try to work on, along with the women groups, along with the local bodies. That's what we try to do constantly. And the other thing that NAN tries to do is that building solidarity amongst the different communities, different resilient communities beyond Nagaland, beyond our tribe, beyond our country. We create platform through different programs, whether it is biodiversity festivals, whether it is a learning, agroecological learning circles that we create. We try to bring together and build solidarities, exchange knowledge, and see that we form a movement. Because Northeast Network, being a very small organization, we will not be able to reach out. We will not be able to, make a change that we need to see right now. And that we believe in building solidarity and, sharing that platform and moving ahead. So these are some of the initiatives that we do work on. Akole can add if I've missed anything.
Yeah, so I think we don't have more to that. There are several other initiatives that NEN is like initiatives of NEN, but these are the few things that we would like to share with you all. And the last part is like we just wanted to share a few recommendations, like what is it that we have to do if we are going to move towards a sustainable and resilient future. The first thing we believe is that we really need to safeguard our natural resources, the common resources. And these funds can be safeguarded only if it is given, retained in the hands of the community, in the hands of the people, and not being taken away by, some elites or corporates or, other uh, other elements. So this is something we believe in. And then if we are going to answer some of the global crises, such as the climate change now, poverty, or malnutrition, or the social inequity, I think we really need to recognize agroecology as the answer to this crisis. And in all this, because we know that women are at the center of agroecology, it is important to recognize their knowledge, their contribution, and also recognize women's leadership in this sustaining agroecology, in combating climate change. So this is something we really need to recognize. And we also have to, because women are also very much playing a very significant role in building a solidarity economy. That is something we have seen. And then last thing is we really need to to address gender inequality also. Like only agroecology, this agroecology can also help retain women's autonomy over their own knowledge and also over their own, other common resources like seeds and all. So that is something we see. And very importantly, there's a big, there's a need to redistribute care work, because a lot of it still falls on women, but we really need to redistribute this, and where both men and women can also play equal in it. So this is our, call to the different levels, like even the international community, our governments, also even our, donors or friends, or everyone has really need to recognize agroecology as the answer to the crisis which is on now. So with that, I think we will just end this presentation.
Thank you so much, Akole and Seno. That was a wonderful presentation, and I'm sure everyone who's been listening in, we now have over 80 people online. I'm sure everyone's gotten a huge amount from that. I want to encourage you, if you're in the audience and you have questions or you would like to go deeper into some of these issues that Seno and Akole have brought up, please contribute your questions at the bottom. You can put them, there's a Q&A button that you should see, or in the chat, and we will try to get to as many of those as possible. So before we go to the Q&A, I have some questions of my own that I would love to ask to Seno and Akole. So I'm really interested in kind of hearing your own stories, I know you've acknowledged in the presentation that women in the community face a lot of challenges in terms of being able to share decision making and take leadership roles, and that oftentimes they don't have easy access to their rights. So what was it like growing up for both of you? Because you're now very effective, engaged leaders in your community, but growing up, what were the sorts of obstacles that you faced, or conversely, were there things that helped you or encouraged you to step up? And maybe we can start with Senu, that question for you. Oh, I think you're still on mute, Senu, sorry.
Yeah, I'm born and brought up in Chizami village. It's a small community, and majority of us do, practice farming, and we do practice farming mainly on jhum cultivation and terrace cultivation. And being from a farming family, I have been with my parents in my childhood days, and have been with them, helping them whenever possible till I should say till now. And with Northeast Network, like when we started to work on agroecology, when we started to look at, like the food that we grow, the food that we take from the wild, the food that we get from the small streams, and how it is connected with our health. And so when Northeast Network started in 1995, and when we started the work in Chizami in Nagaland, we first started with health. So health work, nutrition plays a very important part. And thus we started looking, like that was 1998, I can recall that we started looking out for the wild edibles, the traditional cuisines, and also like the healing medicines that the communities used to take those days. And like that continued, and especially like when we started to look at closer, when we can feel the difference of climate changing, and it was the time when we started looking at agroecology, and that's how we started to look the solutions that we have within our own communities. I feel that that was the time when we started to seriously look at agroecology, or like agrobiodiversity, that we use the term mainly. And since then we have been working on this. I have missed your second part of your question, Jen.
Oh no, it was just so that's really interesting context and background, and I think you actually answered my question, maybe indirectly, because my question was about women's leadership and how you kind of came to get to the place that you are. But I think from what you said, you realized that when you came back to the community, that the work that you were doing on health was very much connected with the work that you do now on agroecology, because health and nutrition are kind of interlinked, and that women's rights and women being able to exercise their role in the community and some leadership is the cornerstone to all of that. So I think you did actually answer my question. So maybe then I can turn to you, Akole, with a slightly different question. So I know that Indigenous communities are very diverse, and that's one point we want to kind of emphasize. If we may have people from Indigenous communities on the webinar, but for people who are not familiar, there's a huge diversity of Indigenous communities around the world. And even, I think, in Nagaland, which is your home state, there's also a lot of variety in terms of the way that Indigenous communities live. So from my own experience in India, one thing that really struck me was that in the West, we tend to think of farming as sort of a technical economic activity, as a way of making money, as a way of supporting yourself. But the communities where I was living thought about farming in a much more holistic sense. They had attached a sacred meaning to the land, and so farming almost became a type of spiritual practice in addition to being a livelihood activity that sustained people. And then one thing that came from that was that this foundation of the belief system became a way of preserving the land and the environment and the culture for thousands of years. And so I'm curious, Akole, I know that both you and Seno have had the opportunity to travel, to go to Europe, to go to the US, and you know, through those interactions and your education, you know that the way that your community thinks about and views land is quite different to how we think about it in the West. And so I wondered if you could maybe share some of your reflections and what the differences are in terms of how your community thinks about their relationship to the environment and to land and to farming versus maybe how you've seen in the West, and particularly with women.
Yeah, so let me just try to reflect on this. Well, in my community, as like particularly when it comes to land and all, agriculture and all, we don't see land as a commodity, as something which can be bought and just sold like that, where you are just only producing food. It's not just about that, but we have a very strong attachment, to our land and to our, seeds, to our, agriculture and all. Also because we have this. All our cultural festivals and all celebration of whether it's to do with spring or harvest festival, everything is connected to the agricultural calendar. And now when in my community also, even certain like agricultural activities, we look, listen to the sounds of nature. Say we listen to the sounds of a certain insect or a bird, or we also look at the nature signs like flowering of some trees or some plants and all. So basing on that, we follow a certain calendar of doing our activities and all. So that is why even and the land is we also have this thing of offering the first harvest like to the gods before the pre-Christian, before Christianity came in, like even in the non-Christian period also, we were really worshipping our land and all. So that is why our land is sacred. It's not something which is like just a commodity you can sell or buy like that. So that is where we are. And particularly for women, it is much more, attached to us. And we know that when we are doing this, practicing agroecology, that is when we don't look at how much money I will get from this land by field, but it also depends. Like our women, they used to say that the total benefits that we derive from our agroecological, farm. You see, it's not just about we get a year-round food and food throughout the year. Also, we get nutritious and diverse, food. Not just that, we also get a little bit of income, and we also collect fodder, pig feed and all from our own lands and all. And the kind of herbal and medicinal plants and all we collect, fruits we collect from our agriculture. So they used to calculate that way, and that is why for women particularly, it is not, land is something which is really precious and sacred, for women. That is something I want to share. And yes, one thing I've also seen is that maybe the difference I've seen is elsewhere in other Western countries is when it's more of individualistic kind of, you know, but when we come back to our own community, it's still the community cohesion, the idea, the concept of commons, it's still very much there. But I don't see that in other parts of the world, is like in the Western countries, I mean. Yeah, so I think that is one difference I've seen. Yes, thank you.
That's great. Thank you. That's yeah, very interesting, really substantive, meaty discussion. So we maybe just I could talk to you both all day, but we're keen to also go to the Q&A. So maybe I just will ask one final question for you, Seno. So at the moment, obviously, we're going through a global crisis with coronavirus, and before that even happened, we had the spectre of climate change, which was already causing so much disruption and threatening supply chains, and so on. I guess some people may have a misconception, and it's a common misconception, that agroecology is sort of quaint and old-fashioned and not very innovative. But you've spoken about a lot of innovations that you're doing in your work and that the women are leading, particularly with the case study that you gave. So I'm wondering, what can the rest of the world learn from the work that you're doing in your community about community resilience or adaptation to shocks, and you know, securing women's rights and food supply? Seno, I think you're still on mute. Would you be able to speak to that? Ah, yeah. I think we can hear you now.
Yeah, you know, like climate change, that's something everybody is acknowledging, that you know it's acting in a very strange way. It's coming on us in a very strange way. That acknowledgement or recognition is there amongst the people, but I should say there is an indifference to, you know, taking actions. If the climate crisis is here, what are we supposed to do as the individual members of the community, as the community as a whole, as the government, as the research institutions? What are we supposed to do? How do we tackle this problem? How do we cope? Can we find coping mechanisms within our own systems? Can we exchange some of the practices which are good in um, in addressing the issue? I think these are some of the questions that we need to raise and we need to ask ourselves. When it comes to, you know, like to you know, sharing something positive from my community, I will say that diversity of livelihoods, be it diversity on the farmland or be it the biodiversity in our forest land, this is very important, and this is one key thing that will solve the problem of climate crisis which we have now. In fact, like, it is impacting us so much that there is uncertainty. What food production will a family get this year? What kind of yield? What kind of pest is attacking the crops? You know, like, there are so many uncertainty that the communities are facing, and I'm sure that across the world that is the same case. And what I will wish to say is that, you know, like, the biodiversity, the diversity of livelihood, multiple solutions to address this is the need of the hour, and not single model or a single you know, like, kind of a smart crop that
Yeah.
we call it. I think those we need to do a little, you know, we need to do away with.
Yeah.
And when it comes to you know, COVID-19, uh, definitely, like, in our state also there are some problems like scarcity in the urban areas and all. But when we look at our community, we are happy that we can at least go to the forest and collect the food for the family. We can go and then collect some, at least something from the farms that we grow. And also, like, the community cohesion. the strong social fabric, that the community standing by each other. That is something that we need to learn from each other, because wherever there is a social support, I think the world is kind enough that it will not let us go. So I feel that yeah, from our community, those are like a couple of things that I can say. Maybe Akole can also join.
Thank you. That's wow. That's very profound, and I think you said it better than I could. Thank you, both of you. So now we're going to go to the Q&A. We want to also flag that if you've asked a question and we don't get to it, we're going to probably slightly go over the hour allotted. We thank you if you have to leave right on the hour. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to make sure that all of the questions that are submitted are answered in the follow-up. So if your question isn't in the live session, you will get an answer to it in the follow-up. And so without further ado, we will go to the questions. So first one, how is climate change manifesting for the farmers in Nagaland, and what challenges are you facing due to climate change? I don't know, do you want to take that one, Akole?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, well, like in the state like Nagaland also, with climate change, what we are seeing is that, yeah, with the erratic rainfall patterns, and, like, it is so much more uncertain today that particularly with food production also, the yield and all, it's really uncertain. So this is something which our farmers here are trying to address by not following only one type of agriculture. Say for instance, like we have a terrace paddy rice cultivation, which is something which in the recent decades people have started focusing only on this, and have started have kind of shifted away from shifting agriculture, the June cultivation. Now, because the water rainfall and all is so erratic that there is a problem of drought and all sometimes. So only depending on this terrace rice cultivation methods and all is something which is uncertain. So people are now realizing and then saying that no, we really need to adopt diverse farming methods, not just one form but multiple diverse farming methods. So that is something which farmers are facing. If you follow just one method of farming, then that's the risk. And now again, like when it comes to there are also much more disease and pest outbreak and all. So some things like new kind of disease, new pests are also coming in, and people are not really able to kind of address that, because the insect pests are also something which is new. So here is like just the traditional knowledge and the practice alone cannot really solve this. So that is one challenge, and this is where we really need to kind of integrate both the traditional knowledge and also science, bringing it together and then addressing this kind of problems. And of course there are other problems, which is because women are expected to they are the primary food provider and then caregivers, and also there is much more dependency on women, more challenging for women to kind of grow food and all when they're alone. So I think yeah, health problems are also emerging, and also these are some of the challenges facing.
Yeah, that's wow, there's a lot there to think about too. I particularly like the emphasis that you placed on combining the best of your existing indigenous technology with science. I think that's really important to flag. So the next question, I'm curious about what role these women's collectives will play in combating the increased land grabbing by the wealthy and move towards cash crops. What sort of financial support should and will these groups offer for women farmers and community members to keep their lands. So I don't know specifically in Nagaland what kind of threats you're facing with wealthy land grabbing, but maybe you could speak a little bit to that and how women's groups have a role to play, how we can support them. Zeno, or would you like to, or Akoli, who would like that question?
Yeah, maybe Seno can respond to that. I can add on.
I think she's on mute. Ah, there we go. Thanks.
Yeah, the collectives, the women collectives that are, playing a role of protecting our farming seasons are taking ahead of, are taking the role of playing a key role of agroecology. I feel that to support, to strengthen these groups, we need to capacitate, we need to constantly mobilize and organize, and so that like they can speak for themselves. So, when it comes to capacitating, it's not about like how to farm, but it is to give them information about various schemes that the government has, uh, even like the various skills that one needs to have when it comes to leadership. It needs to do with like information. It needs to build, to do with their confidence building. And I think like when we talk about financial support, it is also a support to this kind of cause, not only to financial, on financial aspect. Definitely, women groups needs, financial support, because credit facilities are also a limitation to women's group for various reasons. There is also like also a need to have, you know, uh, appropriate technologies to help these women's groups. And I think when they are together and when they can come together within, in front of their own communities, or even like outside their community, and talk about the benefits of collective farming, and talk the benefits of agroecology, and show what it means to the community of the present generation and for future. I think that way these women collectives can really show the way, and not only that, they can resist some of the big barriers that is against agroecology. I can give you an example like the women, uh, the community seed banks, which are led by women collectives, is something that we may be talking about the monopolization of seeds by few companies, multinationals of the world. But here in small communities, that women are coming together to have seed banks in their own communities, to contribute, to manage, and I think to support this kind of small initiatives, one can always support in such a way that, okay, how do we maintain, how do we manage seed banks, how do we lend out, how do we see that the right kind of temperature is maintained, like small examples like that. So I think there is ways and means that as to how we can help this kind of women-led initiatives in the communities, especially the collective farming by collective, the farming women's groups.
I just wanted to add to what Seno has shared, that when we are talking of the slowly the land grab and all, like land moving away from the commons to some private hands, particularly the richer people and all. So for this one, what we have also seen is that most of the clan lands, like the community and then the clan lands, usually like some members of the clan would be willing to sell it off because of two factors. One is high health cost, like if somebody is really in need of medical attention and all, that person is compelled, that family clan member is compelled to sell maybe a family land or something, that person share. So that's when that person loses. The health is one. The second thing is for education of children and all. So that is something to it. We look at this health and education is fully now becoming really privatized, so the main role that the collectives can also play is that we really need to kind of the collective can kind of advocate or influence the state also to push for like strengthening the public systems and also the public education system, because a lot of the rural communities who are losing the land and because they need the money is mostly for education and health. So that is something I wanted to add on.
Great, thank you. That's yeah, a really comprehensive answer from both of you. Thank you so much. It's given us so much to think about. So I know we have extra questions and we haven't managed to get to them. We're now slightly over the hour. So we will follow up with all of the questions we haven't answered. But for the meantime, I would like to hand it back to Lauren, who's going to wrap up for us.
Thank you guys for tuning in. We really appreciate it. I want to give an extra thank you to Akoya and Seno and Jen for moderating and participating in a wonderful, wonderful first broadcast of the Hunger for Justice series. Next week, we have Debal Deb on facilitating the Seed Commons, moderated by Dan Barber. Make sure you register on our links and join that conversation as well. I want to have a special thank you to our sponsors, Navita's Organics, Milgram and Dascom Legal Counsel, and Eat Your Way Clean. We really appreciate you guys for tuning in. Please follow us on social media, and please make sure to support NEN at their handles for social media and their website on the screen. Thank you so much, and we look forward to being here with you next week.